Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Just a couple of announcements before we get started, before we start to sink our teeth into this new Gojira record. First off, I will be hosting a live Resident Evil Village drinking game next week on May 7th, right here on the Metal Meltdown. I'm sure many other people will be streaming this exact same game next weekend since it's one of the most anticipated games of 2021, but I promise you none of them will feature my unmatched Chris Barnes impersonation, nor will they feature my drunken ranting, so, I don't think you want to miss that. And second, just an update that, yes, by popular demand, we will also revisit Dream Daddy finally, but only if we reach 4,000 subscribers. So if that's something you want to see within the next month, I suggest you fucking tell all your friends about the Metal Meltdown and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Fortitude is the 7th studio album from Gojira, a French progressive, death, and groove metal band responsible for some of the most iconic and innovative heavy metal of the 21st century. They've sold hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of records at this point. They've done huge stadium tours with the likes of Slayer, Slipknot, Deftones, and many more. They've been nominated for multiple Grammys in the past, including Best Rock Album back in 2017, thanks to their most recent studio album before this, Magma. It's gotten to the point where Gojira are so big, so popular, so successful, so influential even, that many people are wondering if this generation has finally found its answer to a band like Metallica. A thought that Gojira is 100% aware of, may I add, evident by the more accessible radio-friendly presentation and production of this album, Fortitude. All the songs are a lot catchier, there are a lot of big arena-friendly hooks and choruses across this entire album, and everything is just remarkably clean. You could not find an ounce of dirt or mud on this thing if you spent hours analyzing it with the world's most powerful telescope. If it really is safe to assume that Gojira is this generation's answer to Metallica, then this album, plain and simply, is Gojira's answer to the Black Album. And while that notion may frighten or trigger more uptight and conservative metalheads who would actively berate anyone who would dare to achieve even a morsel of commercial success, because apparently there's nothing less metal than, paying your bills or your mortgage or some shit like that. I don't fucking know. The logic has never made sense to me. I, for one, fully embrace what Gojira is doing on this album because, quite frankly, it has resulted in some of their most engaging material to date. And for a band as consistently awesome as Gojira, that is a bold fucking statement. Take, for instance, Into the Storm, which has all of the razor-sharp grooves and crushing percussion that one could possibly expect from a classic Gojira number. That main riff in particular, may I add, chunkier than Grandma's homemade beef stew. Holy fucking shit. At the same time, though, the track also has a much more straightforward structure, almost appearing to take influence from the melodic metalcore or groove metal of bands like Killswitch Engage and Lamb of God, making for something every bit as genuinely anthemic as it is soul-crushingly heavy. Similarly, Born for One Thing is filled to the brim with the kind of churning, pulsating grooves and ominous multi-layered chanting vocals that I would expect off of an extremely visceral cut from L'Enfant Sauvage, now performed with the precision, the refinement, the focus that we would expect from any number of rock tunes heard on the radio. And it's not just the written music either. Gone are the more abstract metaphors and analogies that would define the themes and concepts of previous records. On Fortitude, Gojira just says exactly what's on their mind with no room for interpretation whatsoever. On the track Amazonia, they literally say, "The Amazon is on fire," we've gotta fucking do something about it. And I think it works, honestly. Moments like this provide an urgency to Gojira's songwriting that wasn't always present even on some of their most provocative material. And impressively, despite the more simplistic and accessible presentation, there's still a lot of wiggle room for Gojira to experiment that they absolutely take advantage of. Take for instance Sphinx and Grind, which has probably some of the most extreme and physically demanding material that I think we've heard from Gojira again since L'Enfant Sauvage. Or even the aforementioned Amazonia. This track combines tribal percussion with indigenous woodwinds and chanting, with a very bouncy, funky, but still very muscular groove. It feels like a much proggier take on like Chaos AD or Roots era Sepultura, or even some of the really early Soulfly stuff, which I'm loving 110% honestly. There's also the chant, which will undoubtedly be the album's most controversial number, and I understand why. For the record, I almost dismissed this track entirely for being just really monotonous and boring and repetitive. And while truthfully it's still not my favorite cut on the record, after repeat listens I have come to appreciate where it's coming from. Essentially what Gojira are trying to do is make a very upbeat anthem about unity and achieving world peace through music, and trying to do so without resorting to the tired tactics of fucking Katy Perry or whoever the fuck else. Instead, they're trying to achieve it through some slow-burning psychedelia and prog rock, and while I'm not a huge fan of the execution, I still have mad fucking respect for the concept. This is one of the best constructed and executed radio-friendly metal albums I think I've heard in recent memory, performed and produced with the utmost confidence and spirit, filled to the brim with songs so fucking catchy, they remain lodged in my head right now as we speak, like a crayon in Homer Simpson's brain. And as such, I feel comfortable giving this a very enthusiastic 4 out of 5. This is a great fucking album. I'm pretty sure that much like Magma, this album is going to garner a very mixed response. I've noticed on Discord, on some of the servers I'm on, that some people have already dismissed this album as being Gojira's worst album yet, arguing that the band have sold out. And while I can't change their minds per se, I would encourage those of you who are skeptical, who are concerned that Gojira have somehow compromised whatever defines them, leave that shit at the door. Go into this album as open-minded as you possibly can, and remember that it ultimately really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things how mainstream or not mainstream something is. It only matters if the music fucking slaps. And quite frankly, not only does this music slap, but if it slapped any fucking harder, there'd be a visible handprint across the left side of my face. And while I've no clue really if this album will succeed in introducing hundreds of thousands of new listeners to Gojira, I certainly hope it does, because it's very clear that Gojira are only going to keep growing and refining and evolving from here on out. 4 to 5, I highly doubt we're all going to agree on this thing, but I don't really care, because as far as I'm concerned, this thing's fucking great. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be, so what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.